Hello everyone. This is the second video in a small little series that I will be touching on certain aspects that I'm seeing. This one is to all those ableists and know-it-alls that think that they know what disability should look like, sound like, act like. And I'm going to be putting this out there. So if you're one of those people and you're not ready to hear the truth, scroll on by. As a person with invisible disabilities, I'm bipedal just like a good many of you neurotypicals. But there's a slight problem. I have what they call a disability that deals with the cognitive and neurological aspect. Now, aka autism. Now, what autism is something that most people think that little children should have. In particular, in the older generations, most think that it's only the boys that get autism. Maybe in our day, since I'm 49, that was the going belief. But here's the reality. There's a huge difference in how a lot of disabilities show up in both girls and boys, especially if you're neurodiverse like me. I have autism and ADHD. Sure, I can talk like you, sound like you, dress like you. And if I really wanted to put on a show, I'd throw on the mask and act like you. Or what I figure social aspects should be. But here's the problem. If I don that mask, I come home being stressed out and maxed out, and all my energy is gone. I have no energy for doing anything else but trying to heal from my day, because I've had to pretend to be normal just to survive in the world not made for me. Now, it's fine and dandy to go and put divots in sidewalks for those that have physical aspects. But for someone like me, you need a divot in your attitude. So I'm going to be blunt, and I'm going to be real, and I'm going to be me. Because I dropped my mask a long time ago. Yes, in many ways, that made it so that I can't get traditional jobs because I refuse to hide who I am. Many autistics do a little thing called stimming that helps them regulate. I stim too, especially if I'm on a phone call. I pace, to be honest. Now, when it comes to accessibility and how it should look or how it should be, we always look to those that happen to be in a more visual aspect of disability, as in someone might use a walker or need certain aspects, like say you're online and the person needs the captions. And then there are others that might need something else, such as a device to help them make sentences because they can't talk, or they are mute, or I can't even think of the words. They're verbal but not verbal. They're verbal in certain situations or aspects, or they're not able to, they're able to talk but their sentence is broken. And I'm not talking about because of language barrier. I'm talking about some people are afraid or are not able to talk in public situations, or they're not able to formulate certain aspects of sentence structure because their brain doesn't allow it. But yet you give them a device, sort of what Stephen Hawking had, and they'll talk your ear off, but it takes them forever and a day to type out one sentence. Those devices are essential for someone like me if they cannot do the basics of communication, or if they've lost their ability to communicate due to disease and or their own disability aspects. The other end of it is when we put accessibility within our society, we should consider the aspects of all disabled people and what they need, not just those that have a more visible aspect of disability, such as a wheelchair, or the need to use other aids such as hearing aids or guide dogs. There are other working animals that help with PTSD people or people with chairs. And these are very important animals in a person's life or devices. To deny these people their accessibility is like saying, oh, you can live here, but you have to be like one of us. So basically you're saying to me that because I look and sound the way I do, I have to be you, but yet, on the other hand, I'm allowed to stim, just not in front of you or in front of anyone. And that stimming might be the one thing that keeps me regulated. Far be it from me to argue with logic, right? We also need to look at certain aspects on judgmental type things or ableist type views for those disabled people that are capable of working but are on social assistance or income assistance for a reason. Many jobs do not hire disabled people unless if it's out of tokenism. So say it was some kind of awareness thing. Autism awareness for a prime example. I don't know how many times I've been hired out of tokenism because of some stupid awareness day. Just to make the job look good. I was that token girl, and when the awareness thing was all done and over with, I was bullied by the employer. Any other time that I tried to get a job after being laid off, I was called a liability to my face. And if I did get hired, I was laid off within a matter of 2 weeks because of the way I am. It's against the law to say it was my disability that got me canned, but the problem is that a lot of people with disabilities are very hard workers. And they want to be thorough, but a lot of jobs don't allow the person with a disability to take their time so they can get the job right the first time. So they're rushed, and then they're let go because they didn't do the job properly. Or they get written up for something that they cannot control. My autism? Most people would call me rude or crude. Well, I am crude. Let's put it that way, if you got to know me. Or different or odd. And they don't hire me because of that. And because of the way I am as a human. What you call rude, I'm sorry to say, but I'm not willing to change just to suit your plethora of belief of what I should be or that who I am as a human. The fact is that a lot of things based around disabled people, such as autistic women being rude and belligerent or odd, is just your perception of what isn't real. Could be just simply as the disability. How I project myself isn't going to be the same on how most neurotypicals choose to project themselves on the job. And I've actually been let go within 2 weeks of a job and been told that I'm being laid off because the company scaled back, but yet I go back a few days later and in my place is 2 younger neurotypical adults for the very same job that I did. How is that saving the company money if they have to hire 2 neurotypical adults to do the same job I did, one person? You tell me that. Saving money and scaling back is not hiring 2 neurotypicals to set it to be in the same job that I did and only took one of me. Let's put it that way. The other end of it is a lot of disabled people, if they are hired, are very thorough in what they do. They have to be. But for that, the boss has to understand that he has to allow that disabled person the time to be thorough. Because if they're not, they're going to get the job wrong, especially if they're rushed. The other side of it is when you look at a person that's good at something. I have a friend who's in a wheelchair. And he's getting his computer courses done to become a tech of sorts. He's tried to apply at jobs many times over. And he's called a liability. It's against the law at the federal levels to discriminate against people with disabilities. Would you call this discrimination? I would. I would also call it ableism at its finest. Here's the other end of it. What I've seen online, I don't know if you've seen it, but I've certainly seen it, where people basically state that anyone on disability, anything, age, or whatever you want to call it in your province or culture, anything made for disability income through your government is there for a reason. It's because employers don't hire people with disabilities a good lot of the time. But yet they call themselves inclusive. Figure that one out. Are they only inclusive to neurotypical society of different cultures? Different beliefs? What happens if it's their own culture, but the person has a disability? Are they being inclusive by not hiring that person with a disability? I would think so. The ableism that I see online is absolutely horrendous. These are the very same people that don't have the balls to say it to my face. Because I used to be on income assistance for disability here in Alberta, aka AISH. A lot of the views on people with disabilities that happen to be on CPPD or any form of disability pension or provincial benefit are called lazy. We're not lazy. We do side jobs because we need to survive, because employers don't hire us. Most employers would call us a liability in a flat second. I've had 20 years of it, of being called a liability. But hey, that's your view as a neurotypical, able-bodied human. I'm not lazy. I had to pay into my CPPD in order to qualify for CPPD, which is the other end, or flies under the same banner as CPP. I had to pay into that, just like all of you neurotypicals out there that think disabled people are lazy. I'm not lazy. In my younger years, I worked several jobs in order to survive. Yes, they were all cash. But you know what? We all have to eat. It's better than flying into the gray zone and working as a street girl. At least I was doing a service for seniors and people with disabilities in my community, for which also helped me. So in a way, I was helping myself while helping other people, as many disabled people do when it comes to survival tactic. We don't ask to be disabled. We don't ask to have a diagnosis. We're just the lucky ones They get the gene that causes the disability or disease that made us disabled. For some of us with mental health aspects or disease like cancer or multiple sclerosis, I hate to say this, but those illnesses, those disabilities become the full-time job. You can't have a job or work if your disability doesn't allow it. So to call people with a disability lazy is asinine. It's wrong. And it'd be good for you to look things up before you call someone lazy. And to put it nicely, for those of you that happen to be watching this and happen to be on my side, understand that when you educate yourself, you make lives like mine a little bit more tolerable. Thank you. The next video is going to be on a very taboo subject, and I think it's important for people to hear it. Because, again, it's all about what I see online and the attitudes that I am looking at. And by the way, some of those attitudes also happen to be within the disability community, for which someone might have had the privilege and the luck of this draw to have supporting, doting parents and or supports in their lives that allowed them to work and succeed. But that's only 1% of all disability communities. A lot of people with disabilities don't have that luxury. And that's what I'm going to call it, a luxury. Not all of us have that kind of support. So to say that all disabled people are lazy or are unkempt or are drug addicts or addicted to something, that's not true. I have never, ever been addicted to anything. Yes, I experimented like a good many of us in our young years. But there's an aspect to having a disability like mine. And if you ever look over the statistics, like I have, if you have a disability, you are more prone to neglect and other forms of issues that we face than, say, the average person without a disability. The cases of having MA, or marital abuse, but I'll just call it MA from here on out, is higher in the disability population and senior population than it is any other part of our populace and our society. So if you have a disability for which is blind to tone and social cues and whatever, you might have trouble distinguishing good person, bad person, good intent, bad intent, because you can't read them. How I know this is because I went through 2 MAs in my lifetime. By the time I was 13, I was SA'd 8 times. When I was 23, someone spiked my drink and took and had their way with me. I'm pretty sure of it because I'm getting memories back 20 years later. Because of the negative influence within society forced upon people like me, or expected of people like me, who can't read body language or tone, don't get social cues, We are more prone to those issues than the average person that has the privilege of being able to do it naturally. And then you're forced to go through people's judgments and such, to the point of seeing people that you love or know people that you have known for years come out with the most derogatory things, like, funny you don't look autistic, funny you don't look disabled, or the baby voice that's high pitched, you're so articulate, or things you wouldn't do to a normal person, but you would do it to me or any other disabled person, just because you believe that people like me cannot conceptualize that maybe what you're doing is bullying. Maybe what you're doing is being ableist. Ableism and bullying are both learned. And often it starts within our school grounds and or at home from parents that don't know any better. Or if they do know better, they just refuse to change their behaviors. But yet, I have to change myself to placate neurotypical society insecurities. How fair is that? I don't think it's fair that I have to placate you, neurotypicals, or able bodies, just to suit your comfort levels. Because when I have to mask or pretend to be you, even though you say I'm allowed to be me, it's setting a double standard. And it's setting people like me up for failure. We also need to change how accessibility should look in the face of disability, because not all disabled people use aids. I don't. Not all of us need a divot in the sidewalk. Sometimes we just need a divot in the attitude. Now I'm going to pull off one more video, and that one's going to be on essay and the views on women's rights.